Hey, Backslash BL for 64K, and welcome to another episode of Pop Culture Quick Bytes. And welcome back. So in today's episode, we're going to have a look at Bitmap Books' latest release, obviously retro gaming related, and it's a new book called The Games of a Lifetime. This was released in February of 2025. So basically what this book is a chronicling of Julian Rignall and his career. If you're from Europe, you probably know that name. If not, he was a gaming journalist and writer for some of the UK's most prolific magazines from the 80s and 90s, including all my favorites basically, Zap64, Computer and Video Games, Mean Machines, and he's done obviously a host more. This book kind of chronicles his journey and not only his career but also all his favorite games. And this book clocks in at about 420 pages, so it's pretty dense. Like I said, it chronicles Julian's career, but it's not only a look at his favorite games, it's obviously a biography of sorts, but also it's basically a trip through gaming history. It's a whole bunch of stuff all in one, but we'll discuss that a little bit later. The best part about this is that Julian will be joining us today as I ask him a few questions about his career and obviously the book. And before we start to dive into all of that, let's take a brief look at the cover and the contents. The book features a nice foreword by Digital Foundry's Richard Ledbetter, a year-by-year listing of the games Julian highlights, and if you're looking for a specific game, it has a full index at the back of everything covered. And now let's start looking at the heart of the book. As I asked Julian, what was it about those early arcade games and video games in general that got him hooked on the subject?
My first video game experience was in Woolies in their electronics department in the mid to late 70s. Seeing that for the first time was just like, holy crap, look at that, that's incredible. And, sort of immediately like, well, that's a cool piece of technology. I wonder what else it might be able to do in the future. But, I wasn't thinking too much about that. But when I saw Space Invaders like a couple of years later, and, that's like, a proper game. Pong is a game, obviously, it's simple, but Space Invaders is like, you got a whole thing going on. You got the aliens, you got, you're shooting them down, they're trying to, squash you, bomb you, whatever it is they're doing. And, that was a massive evolutionary step forward. And, so sort of going from playing Pong and thinking it's brilliant to seeing that and going like, holy crap, that is absolutely incredible, made a huge impression on me. And I just thought it was the coolest thing. And not only that, but when I started playing it, and I'd already been playing Pong, I knew I was kind of good at these things, especially once I started playing Space Invaders and figuring out sort of how to clear the screens and stuff. What's not to love?
And now a quick little word from today's sponsor. The Supernova is the latest wired and wireless controller from GameServe, fully customizable from swappable faceplates and button layouts, app download for more options, switchable analog trigger support for short and long responsiveness, extra customizable buttons, drift proof, and at a very affordable price point. Available now in Nightfall Blue and Whipped Pink. Comes with all accessories including dongle interface and full docking and recharge station. Plus, best of all, offers multi-format support for PC, the Nintendo Switch, and iOS and Android. Follow the links in the video description to purchase one now, and I thank GameServe for sponsoring this video. The focus of the book is definitely the writing and overall story. If you want an honest, grounded perspective of the industry, it delivers just that with a clean, neat look that makes it very easy to read from a visual point of view. And like I said earlier, the book's overall format is pretty unique, so I decided to ask Julian what was the idea behind this.
I didn't want to write an encyclopedia, and I've said this a few times now, which is kind of not to disparage encyclopedias. I did write one a long time ago. It was actually the first book I wrote with Richard Ledbetter, aka Digital Foundry. We did a kind of like a Sega book with all reviews of all the games and stuff. So I've kind of been there and done that, but I wanted to do something different, and I'd sort of already written a whole bunch of sort of like experiential essays about just gaming experiences that I'd sort of written to keep as practice, basically, when I wasn't actually writing about video games for a few years. I've got the makings of a book here, but I don't really want it to be an encyclopedia, but because they're sort of essays and they all represent particular periods in my life, so, let's turn it into a kind of history of video games with sort of, what was happening in my life as a backdrop. So you get that kind of double hit of it's a narrative, so, you sort of a historical narrative starting from 1976 and through to the modern age. There are big games missing for sure, stuff that people are like, why on earth didn't he like that game? But it's just like stuff that I liked. So, the idea being it's a sort of a bit of a mystery adventure in a way, because, of course, you're going to see all the classics and all of those sort of, incredibly well-known important games. There's also stuff that I might talk about that you might not think about or, sort of necessarily think of as being a real classic, but it just, it was really big for me, and I tried to explain why.
Visually, the book has all the bitmap stylings, those nice big double splash screen pages. There's plenty of classic history photos of Julian's career. Some of these are literally seared into my mind from reading those aforementioned magazines so many times, and a lot I've never seen before, which is pretty damn cool.
So all of us of a certain generation got to experience video games from their infancy right up to the modern age. We got to see those huge leaps and bounds in technology. I wanted to ask Julian on his opinion, what he thinks the new generation are really experiencing now, seeing as they don't get to see these massive jumps as we did.
Yeah, I thought about this actually because it's a really, really cool question. I like it. And as I thought about it, I was like, well, you know what? I think this is one of the big reasons why I'm writing this book is because I would love it if kids that are interested in video games and particularly older games can read it, but also to sort of understand it, so when some middle-aged old fart is sitting there going, oh, this was the best game ever made, and they've never made a game better than that, and you look at it and it's actually a pile of shitty pixels swilling about, and the kid looks at that and just goes, what the hell is that? Kind of just as my granddad would talk about some bit of music that he loved, and I would listen to it and I go like, some crappy big band farty tune, what is that? Give me Joy Division any day of the week. And so it's basically exactly the same thing. It happens every generation. And so what I'm trying to do is some understanding, perhaps, hopefully, of why we like these things. Give them context, historical context, so they don't just look at it and go like, well, that's just a bat and a ball and it's going backwards and forwards, but kind of understand like, no, that was the first one, and when you don't have anything and that comes out of nowhere, you're going to think it's the greatest thing ever because it's number one in a field of one.
And my final question to Julian was actually about the beginning and the ending of his book, which is very cool, but I won't spoil that for you. I just wanted to ask his opinion on where he actually sees the future of gaming going.
That's actually a cool question, and I'm glad you're asking about that, because that was quite important to me. Without giving it away, what I'm really trying to do with the sort of opening and ending spreads is connect the threads of video game history and kind of sort of paint it as not only it's one continual line, everything's connected, one thing leads to another kind of thing. What really drives this industry is creativity and really good ideas, and it doesn't really matter what discipline that is, programming, art, sound, whatever, all of these things were important. And no matter what the technology is, you've always had people who are able to exploit technology to deliver these incredible experiences, no matter what the technology is. But at the end of the day, the bedrock of the games industry is the creative people that make the games. Everyone else can f*** off, basically, all the business people and all that lot, they're useful and great, but they don't make the games, they sell them. Video games have always been made by people. I just want to celebrate that, because that really is what the whole history of video games is essentially built on.
And finally, I just want to thank Julian for joining us today. I really appreciate that. Overall, this book is very cool. I like it a lot. It gives you a little bit of perspective on a whole bunch of things. It's not your usual thing, which I like. I'm always looking for something that's a little bit different. Obviously, the packaging of Bitmap Books is excellent. When you order this thing, you're getting something that is packaged super well. It's not going to be damaged. Their packaging is immaculate. Obviously, as per usual, I always say this, the shipping is a little bit expensive if you're outside of the UK, but that's to be expected in the modern climate anyway with shipping. But it is well worth it, I can assure you on that. And I'll leave all the links in the video description so you can order this book. And thanks for joining me, Bastish B at 64K. I hope you had a good time. And if you can please like and subscribe, they'll be greatly appreciated. And I'll see you next time. Cheers.